Please rise for the academic procession.
By virtue of the authority vested in me, I constitute this a congregation of Rhodes University. Please be seated.
The Chancellor, the Honorable Justice Lex Mpati, the Chairperson of the Rhodes University Council, Judge Gerald Bloom, and other members of our Council, the University Public Orator, distinguished Professor Paul Maylam, our Honorary Graduate, Ambassador Thenjiwe Mtintso, the President of the Rhodes University Convocation, Dr. Michelle Ratus, Deputy Vice-Chancellors, Acting Registrar, Deans, Heads of Academic Departments, and Directors of Administrative Divisions, academic and support staff colleagues, President and other members of the Student Representative Council, proud parents, guardians, siblings and friends of our graduates, honored guests, and most of all, our graduates. On behalf of our council, the Board of Governors, and the entire Rhodes University community, I warmly welcome you all this morning to this graduation ceremony of master's and doctoral candidates. We extend a very special welcome to all the children and babies who are here with us. They are future Rhodans. We welcome them very much. We also extend a special welcome to the special guests of our honorary graduate, Ambassador Mtintso. They are Professor Bani Pityana, who is an honorary graduate an honorary professor of our university. Sis Dimza, Professor Pityana's wife, Ambassador Nomvume Makaka, and Ambassador Zodwa Lali. A very warm welcome to you all. Hearty congratulations to you all, our graduates, on your academic achievements. It has taken hard work, perseverance, and discipline to get to this high point in your academic journey. You have every reason to be proud of what you have achieved. We are immensely proud of you and what you have achieved. Dear graduates, you will be the first to acknowledge that you did not get to this moment in time entirely on your own. No one accomplishes anything on their own. The old African adage, "It takes a village to raise a child," is as true today as it has always been. Accordingly, we extend our heartfelt congratulations to your partners, families, friends, and all those whose loving sacrifices, constant encouragement, and unfaltering support have sustained you throughout your academic journey at Rhodes University. At times when you might have lost all hope and wondered if you'd get to the finishing line, they were there to cheer you on and cheer you up. This graduation ceremony is as much yours as it is theirs. They have stood by you steadfastly throughout your years of research and writing of your dissertation or thesis. We acknowledge with much appreciation and gratitude the role played by your dissertation and thesis supervisors, who guided and mentored you and provided intellectual and personal support as you were conducting research. They read and critiqued the first and subsequent drafts of your dissertation or thesis and provided you with feedback to refine your thoughts, enhance the quality of your work, and sharpen your research skills. Congratulations to all the dissertation and thesis supervisors. We offer our warmest congratulations to Ambassador Thenjiwe Mtintso, who will receive the university's highest honor, an honorary degree, Doctor of Laws, Honoris Causa. This is in recognition and celebration of her long and sustained contribution as a dedicated freedom fighter and a committed gender activist. Her passion for justice, freedom, and human dignity saw her leave her country of birth to seek refuge in foreign lands in order to prosecute the liberation struggle against the iniquitous and oppressive system of apartheid. On her return, she spared no energy in building a free, non-racial, non-sexist, and democratic South Africa. Ambassador Mtintso is a source of great inspiration to us all. Dear graduates, in many respects, you are pathfinders, you are trailblazers, and you are pioneers. You have opened new research directions and raised new and profound questions, even as you endeavored to answer the original questions that set you off on your research journey. You have contributed new knowledge and new insights to our accumulated stock of global knowledge. This is a tremendous achievement indeed. I hope you have savored those exhilarating aha moments when different pieces fell in place. You have no doubt equally experienced the frustration that comes with setbacks when nothing seems to work. You have gained wisdom. As you move on with the next phase of your life, never cease to appreciate the value of learning, the significance of knowledge, the strength of ideas, the merit of asking questions, the usefulness of theory, the need for reason and evidence, the power of logic, the benefits that come from clear thinking and thoughtful argument. Above all, never forget that one of the most important things we endeavor to inculcate at Rhodes University is the value of keeping a mind open to views and perspectives that are different to those you may hold. We are currently living through very challenging times. You are graduating at a time of deep uncertainty and anxiety. Our nation is at a crossroads in every conceivable sense, politically, economically, socially, morally, and ethically. We are in the midst of the worst crises in our 28 years of a democratic dispensation. All around us, we see pervasive and debilitating poverty and deprivation, existing alongside obscene and unbridled opulence, and vulgar and ostentatious display of ill-gotten material wealth. Corruption, mismanagement, greed, nepotism, deceit, impunity, malfeasance, and lawlessness have spiraled out of control and have been normalized as an acceptable form of life. State-owned enterprises have been hollowed out and teetering on the brink of collapse, and this is best exemplified by the Eskom energy crisis. There are concerted efforts calculated to malign, discredit, and delegitimize institutions of our constitutional democracy. The very foundational principles of our constitutional democracy are under fierce attack. The very idea of a constitutional democracy is being intensely challenged by those who took an oath to obey, observe, uphold, and maintain the Constitution and all the laws of the Republic. We are on a ruinous path. We are on a perilous path. This is a time for deep reflection, a time of decision, a time to act in defense of our constitutional democracy, a time for accountability, a time for leadership. It is now or never. Despite the protection of our Constitution, women of our country live in constant fear. Fear of being assaulted, fear of being raped, and fear of being killed. And despite the protections of our Constitution, those who are part of the LGBTQIA+ community live in constant fear. Fear of being assaulted, fear of being raped, and fear of being killed. So what kind of freedom do we lay claim to if significant portions of our society are still imprisoned in fear? Make your choice. Do not allow the fear of failure to drive you into the safety and placidity of inaction. Much is at stake, and time is not on our side. If we do not act now, our nation will implode with catastrophic consequences. We will bequeath future generations a failed state, a wasteland. They will be right to ask, when you saw all these things happen, what did you do? There is no middle way. Make your choice. We invite you to be part of those patriots who want to leave this country out of this morass. In all that you do, make social justice, human dignity, environmental justice, and common good central in your life. This year marks the 50th anniversary of our School of Journalism and Media Studies, a significant milestone indeed. What began in 1970 as a single course in journalism with 17 students quickly grew into a fully fledged Department of Journalism in 1972. It is now a school housed in its own state-of-the-art building and offering a wide range of undergraduate and postgraduate degrees to over 500 students. Our warmest congratulations to the staff, students, and alumni of our School of Journalism and Media Studies. We celebrate that our Constitution protects the right to freedom, to media freedom. And this is critical for the health of our constitutional democracy. As we celebrate this significant milestone of our School of Journalism and Media Studies, we must record our deep concern and disquiet with the desperate attempts to bully, to intimidate, to harass, and silence one of the best legal reporters in this country and a graduate of our university, Karen Moore. Frivolous and vexatious court proceedings that are without merit have been instituted against her. Such flagrant abuse of the court processes is bound to fail, and it will fail. We stand with Karen. Karen is one of the recipients of the special awards to celebrate the 50th anniversary of our School of Journalism and Media Studies. Let me conclude by paying a special tribute to the wonderful people who have worked tirelessly to make our graduation ceremonies a great success. They normally work behind the scenes to ensure that our graduation ceremonies run without a hitch. These are the people who have worked extra hard to ensure that the names of our graduates appeared on the graduation program in the right place, in the right order, and for the right qualification. You see, they wanted to be sure that the moment of glory of each one of our graduates was a truly memorable experience. There are too many to mention, but permit me to single out a few. Our faculty deans, who will soon be reading names of those who are graduating. Our master's, dissertation, and doctoral thesis supervisors. The army of student volunteers who are serving as ushers. Ms. Desiree Wicks, Ms. Suzette Flanagan, Ms. Charmaine Avery, Ms. Natalie Ripley, Mr. Joel Mabocha, and the Rhodes University Protection Services. Our excellent choir. When you see these people around, please give them a bear hug, a smile, and say a quiet thank you. They are truly special. Our Deputy Vice-Chancellor, Research and Innovation, Professor Peter Clayton, who has served this university for decades, will be retiring at the end of this year. These October graduation ceremonies are his last in his official capacity as a Deputy Vice-Chancellor, Research and Innovation. Peter, on behalf of our council and the entire Rhodes University community, I wish to convey our heartfelt appreciation and deep gratitude to you for all that you have done for our university. You have led the research and innovation portfolio with great distinction. That our university is among the top 3 most productive universities per capita is in no small measure as a result of your outstanding leadership. You have been a great support to me and the rest of the leadership team. We will miss you. We wish you a happy retirement. We wish you a happy retirement and everything of the best for the future. Once more, congratulations to you all. Wish you much success, happiness, discernment, and fulfillment in the years ahead. To all of you, Mazal Tov. Asante sana, enkosi, kyaleboha, nyabonga, kyaleboa, ndoleboa, nyathokoza, obrigado, inkom, shukran, merci beaucoup, tante grazie, baya danke, palsho es possible. Thank you very much.
It has often been stated that during apartheid, and for long before, black South African women suffered a triple oppression in the realms of race, class, and gender, enduring racial discrimination, class exploitation, and patriarchal domination. One person who has withstood and fought fearlessly against this subjection has been Thenjiwe Mtintso. She has done so with enormous courage, determination, and strength throughout her life. Where did this strength come from? the early experience of hardship and poverty tends to restrict the life chances of most people, but not so in her case. Her mother, a domestic worker, her father, a labor leader and political activist, who died when Thenjiwe was still a small child. Born and growing up in informal settlements in Soweto, her earliest memory is of a shack full of people. She recalls asking her mother, "Who exactly is my brother or my sister of the whole lot?" Because there was never enough food, never enough sleeping place. But there are also vivid memories of her inspirational mother, a single black woman having to move from one squatter area to another with no right to own the shacks she built. Thenjiwe had to leave school at the age of 14, going to work in a factory in order to support her mother's struggle to subsist, earning 5 rand a week, but still having the determination to study for the junior and senior certificates by correspondence while working. However onerous and painful these early experiences, they were also formative. As she herself has said, "My hatred of oppression of any type was to be informed by our own suffering at home, my experiences in the squatter camp where I grew up, and my experiences on the factory floor." An unwavering commitment to education took her to the University of Fort Hare in 1972, registering for a BSc, while also taking on part-time jobs to pay for her fees and to support her mother. This was a time when the Black consciousness movement was gaining momentum, and she soon joined its student organization, SASO, working closely with Steve Biko and Mampela Rampele, only to be expelled from Fort Hare in her second year for political activities. This marked the beginning of a 5-year period during which she was detained 5 times, severely tortured, and thrown into solitary confinement. Biko's biographer, Xolele Manku, has noted that when in prison, Thenjiwe Mtintso was as tough as nails, challenging the police and refusing to cooperate with them. This early experience of hardship and oppression, she says, left her with no choice other than to become a political activist. And so she did, going into exile in 1978 after the murder of Steve Biko, and joining Umkhonto we Sizwe in Lesotho, undergoing military training in Cuba, then returning to work with the Regional Political Military Council, which coordinated the ANC's political and military activities in Lesotho. Later, from 1986 to 1989, heading the equivalent council in Botswana, making her one of very few female MK commanders. This to be followed by a 2-year stint as the ANC's chief representative in Uganda. After 14 years in exile, she returned to South Africa in 1992 and was soon participating in the negotiations with the apartheid government, leading to the 1994 settlement. This in turn led to her taking up a seat in Parliament as an ANC MP, while at the same time completing her BA degree at Wits. Giving up her parliamentary seat, she became the Deputy Secretary General of the ANC, the first woman to hold this position. Since 2003, she has served as the country's ambassador in a number of countries: Cuba, Italy, Romania, Malawi, Spain, and was recently appointed as High Commissioner to Namibia. What is particularly striking about this remarkable life path is that at nearly every stage, Thenjiwe Mtintso has had to encounter and confront patriarchy, finding that in the Black consciousness movement, women had to fight against marginalization by men, witnessing and experiencing sexual abuse in MK camps, and finding that the issue tended to be swept under the carpet by leaders. Also coming up against patriarchy when serving as an MP, finding the institution disempowering for women, prompting her to write her Wits master's thesis on the subject of women in the South African Parliament. She may be best known for her political activism, but her preoccupation with gender issues stands out. In 1996, becoming the first chairperson of the Commission on Gender Equality, later providing gender training for women in politics in Africa, writing articles on women, patriarchy, and gender relations. She continually asks herself what she can do practically as a feminist to change the lives of poor women. Today, Rhodes is proud to honor Thenjiwe Mtintso, a political activist who played an important role in the liberation struggle, who served on the ANC National Executive Committee from 1994 to 2017, but has not been afraid to speak out against greed and corruption in the organization, complaining that many join the ANC to further their own interests rather than to work for the public good. Hers has been a remarkable life that has taken her from a childhood of hardship, growing up in informal settlements, taking her to military camps, to parliament, to ambassadorships in 3 continents, while all the time maintaining her determined commitment to feminism and gender issues. Mr. Chancellor, I have the honor to request you to confer on Thenjiwe Mtintso the degree of Doctor of Laws, Honoris Causa.
Chancellor of Rhodes University, Honorable Justice Lex Mpati, Vice-Chancellor, Professor Sizwe Mabizela, Deputy Vice-Chancellors, Registrar, Deans of Faculties, professors and lecturers and all academics, as well as esteemed staff of the university, students and graduates, parents and relatives, members of the media, the choir, ladies and gentlemen. Let me begin with a TRC confession. On hearing that I had to make a speech in acceptance of this honor, I was in a tease. I called friends. I asked people, when you get an honorary doctorate, what do you do? What do you say? I asked my son, Lumumba, who's here, who was a student here. I asked Professor Pani Pityana, wonke umuntu nje ndabuza, kuthiwani xa kunje? But finally, last night, a friend of mine who's an academic and very, very clever and educated said, Thenjiwe, they know that you are not an academic. They don't expect an intellectual speech from you, but they just want you to share your journey or your views. Kwathi hu emva kwakho. So, no academic speeches coming from me. But I do want to argue a little bit that education, ethics, gender justice, and Ubuntu is not worth the money and efforts on it if it does not contain those. Let me congratulate all graduates and your families for this milestone in your long journey. Remember the sacrifices from the communities that came together to help you. Above all, live by the words of that trailblazer, Charlotte Maxeke, who said, I quote, kill that spirit of self and do not live above your people, but live with them. And if you can rise, bring someone with you. Close quotes. Without that, your degrees and today's celebrations are actually worthless. I was ambivalent about accepting this honorary doctorate because in my view, if you wanted to be a doctor and get a doctorate, you were intentional about it. You studied, you researched, you wrote. But after being convinced by my many educated friends, I must say, finally, I am actually deeply honored and humbled by this recognition. I'm indebted to those who found it fitting to propose my name. I do not take your trust in me for granted. I hope I will not, in my twilight years, disappoint you, and I will continue to enhance whatever it is that you saw in me. There are in this country millions of women deserving similar recognitions, but regrettably, their stories have not yet been told, and those of us who were lucky enough to get exposure should always acknowledge and assist them to tell their stories, from which we could learn a lot and help improve our society. I know that my story has already been told, but I will tell it myself also. I was born in Emaplatini, Ematyotyombe, next to Soweto. As my mother was working as a cleaner at Baragwanath Hospital, the women of Emaplatini not only took care of me, but instilled some of the best values I would later in life rely on, much as I did not know it then. They beat out of me any tendency towards lying and theft. The worst beating was when I stole a pot of meat from a common bowler. I don't know what bowler is in English, which we used for cooking, and there was never enough meat in our shack. What with all those relatives who always filled our shack, either coming to look for jobs, finding schools, studying at Bara, fetching izisu pregnancies from their migrant husbands, and any activities necessitating migration from rural to Gauteng. We just never had enough food. I was later carted off to my mother's sister in Empozolo in the then Transkei. It is through those women and my aunt that at the age of 8, I got to understand gender injustice and the cruelty of patriarchy disguised as culture. Our homestead was burnt down because my aunt refused ukungenwa, being married without consent by a person that you did not even love, by uombi. When her husband, my uncle, died, we were assisted by other women to escape the wrath of Abangeni, the men, to another village in Tsimbakas. There, I also began to understand the interconnection between education, ethics, and Ubuntu. There was a gentleman who had a BA degree from Fort Hare and worked as the magistrate's clerk, sasimbiza uclerk. He was the most unrespected and disrespectful man in the village. Elders called him, I quote, high society. And behind his back, they would whisper, "Ayingomntu lanto." That person is not a person, but a thing, reducing him to a thing. My grandmother explained the uselessness of education if one could not be humane, angabi nabuntu. I was 10 years, and I vowed never to be called into. I often told my grandmother, "Uba, ndixolela ungafundi, uba imfundo iza kundenza ukuba ndibe yinto." I would rather stay uneducated if education is going to reduce me to being a thing. My grandmother, Mamicha, was at pains to explain to me that in fact it was education that would expand my knowledge, extend my horizons, enhancing my humanness, and offer me an opportunity to elevate others into being better persons. Education, she said, would strengthen my intellect while making me a more caring person. I was later to remember her when I read Aristotle's words that, I quote, "Educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all." Later, as already said, I was kicked out of secondary school in Clarkbury High for allegedly leading a strike. In reality, I had not, but I just pointed out some injustices that my schoolmates and I observed at our hostel. Back at home in Litsatsi Street, where my family now stayed, the women workers found me a job at the age of 15. I didn't last long at Basho Dong's factory because he fired us 3 African girls for demanding better working conditions, including an increase in wages from 50 Rand to 100 Rand per month, which we thought was fair. No job, no money for schooling. Letsatsi Street rallied around us and helped me study through correspondence with Tamelin College till I passed both JC and Matric. Through their ecolege, in English, what is ecolege? A collection of money from family and the community. And thanks to Ubuntu, I finally got to Fort Hare. In their dire poverty, the Litsatsi Street women were convinced that if at least one child from that street got educated, their lot would somehow improve. Injustice found me again as I was kicked out of Fort Hare, accused of being one of the leaders for the 1973 strike. I was detained and banned from forever registering in any university in South Africa. But once again, Ubuntu saved me when I joined a group of former students, themselves kicked out of university, who were now community workers in King Williamstown, working with the then banned Steve Biko. Mam Cete, his mother, took us under her wing, dangerous as it was. She took care of my 2-year-old son Lumumba, here with me today, who I had to leave alone when I was detained in the middle of the night in July 1976. In our 15 years of exile, he started exile at 4 years in different countries. Various women took care of him as we never stayed together due to the kind of activities I was engaged in. Women like Ruth Mompati, Me Gertrude Shope, Manjobe, Me Adelaide Tambo, Ray Simons, Me Sislindiwe Mabuza, Me Thandi Rangwe, and many others once again strengthened my resolve to never lose my value of Ubuntu. On our return from exile, my mother, Mahade, was so angry that I had spent 15 years in exile without acquiring even one junior degree kenoko. My role in ANC, in Umkhonto weSizwe, in the SACP, and all those things that I did were no acceptable excuses. My son and I were living in Mkuku in her backyard, dependent on her old age pension and the stipend given to returnees. That sent me running to vets pleading for registration. That was already closed. Thanks to Ubuntu, a young woman administrator, later known as Yolisa Macozo, bent backwards to have me registered despite all those challenges. I somehow found myself in Parliament in 1994, while at the same time registered at Vets for BA Social Work. Yet again, Women's Solidarity and Ubuntu found me, a young woman student, Mtlalipule Mukine, who took notes for me on the days that I was in Parliament in Cape Town. Joining me to receive this honor today, she correctly pointed out that this recognition was for both of us. I have spent a bit of time, or a long time actually, on my journeys, which is similar to journeys of others, only to make the point that many of us who receive accolades and recognitions could never have done it without the solidarity and support of women and without Ubuntu. The clarion call of Malbongwe igama lamakhosikazi should ever reverberate within all the hallowed walls and institutions. Chancellor, today our country is going through many challenges that require sober reflection and reconnection with core values that define us and the vision of a better South Africa. That is a home to all, especially those most vulnerable and poor among us. We are hurting not only because of the multi-generational trauma and legacy of apartheid and capitalism, but also because of the death in ethics and Ubuntu, as a result of which gender injustice has risen into a pandemic of violence against women and the LGBTQI+ community. Without a clear commitment to end inequality and values that are shared for the good for all of us, there is simply no possibility of building an education system that works for all of us. And without ensuring that women advance in our society today, including being in decision-making positions, we simply cannot end gender injustice and build a free society. Education plays a crucial role in changing society. In his book, The Pedagogy of the Oppressed, Paulo Freire wrote about the importance of an education that empowers students to be in dialogue with their teachers and to be critically aware and connected to the society they come from. His theory of critical awareness amongst the oppressed and its link to the notion of freedom resonates with the Black consciousness philosophy of Steve Biko, Professor Bani Pityana, and others. The current student movement and activists who are committed to decolonizing our education system are building on these earlier movements articulated by the Black consciousness movement. So today, we must consider how far we have come in transforming our education and ensuring that it helps shape persons and the systems that root out oppression of the mind and structural oppression that leaves people hungry, unemployed, and unemployable. Students at this university have in recent years spearheaded this call for decolonization. They want education, both the system, the structure, and content to reflect the knowledge systems of this continent and our wisdom. My younger feminist sisters at this university have pushed the university onto the agenda of a society with the notion of intersectionality of class, race, gender, and cultural marginalization. My generation and the previous one of the 50s called it triple-fold exploitation. That these struggles continue is evidence that patriarchy continues unabated, though coexisting with democracy and sometimes taking the colors of democracy. I need not remind you of the need to eradicate gender inequalities and advancing gender justice at universities, including through advancing women to leadership positions. It surely cannot be acceptable, Chancellor, that 28 years after attaining freedom, for which women valiantly fought, only 5 women are vice-chancellors out of 26 universities. Chancellor and Vice-Chancellor, we all know that education does not necessarily make us better people. It does not make us decent neighbors, and it certainly does not make us honest citizens whose names will never be associated with the kind of corruption that we saw during the State Capture Commission or the 1.7 billion rand fraud we saw at Steenhof, to name just 2 examples. In fact, in such cases, we have seen how professionals have used their technical knowledge to rob the nation, especially the poor people. We need an education system that educates the entire being to raise our consciousness and ensure that we are intellectually and emotionally responsive to the environment and the people around us. An education system that will keep us, that will help us have no scientists like Dr. Death, who engineered ways of killing leaders of the national liberation movements at the behest of the apartheid regime. To do this, we need to revisit those earlier conversations about transformation of education. Speaking of ethics in higher education, Kodari Krishna Prasad, an Indian scholar, wrote, "Today, ethics has an important place in all areas of life. Education is also a fundamental process of human life. Therefore, in education, ethics has a very important and effective role. In order to be a good human, ethics should be placed as a course in educational systems." In agreeing with him, I think ethics, gender justice, and Ubuntu should be cross-cutting courses in all disciplines. Much as I've been told that this honorary doctorate places no new obligations or expectations on me, I undertake to conduct myself in ways that are up to the ethical standards of someone who has received such high recognition from this institution. Rhodes University, and I must divert here a little. There are young female feminist doctors in this institution. They hound me day and night. One of them is here. They hound me day and night to write a book, to tell my stories, to lecture, to do all these things. I can assure them, and Rhodes University, that without doubt you can count on me to also contribute in whatever way proposed and possible, especially in the diplomatic sphere I am working in, for the advancement of vision and mission of Rhodes University. I thank you.
Mr. Chancellor, I have the honor to request you to confer the degree of Master of Science on the following candidates. Yogendran Arunachelan in Geology. Tani Tashia Bennett in Entomology with distinction. Kelly Monica Tandy Bernard in Zoology. Dylan Ross Blair in Human Kinetics and Ergonomics. Asanda Sandra Tridi in Water Resource Science with distinction. Luke Eric Cousins in Entomology. Russell Bruce Dixon in Ichthyology with distinction. Todor Stanislavov Genov in Computer Science with distinction. Wilbert Gumunyu in Environmental Biotechnology. Fadzai Faith Hari in Bioinformatics. Ilago Martha Iyambo in Ichthyology with distinction. Imbulelo Jokazi in Chemistry with distinction. Robert Daniel Kincaid in physics with distinction. Michle Magengelele in biochemistry. Nseka Thomas Maswabi in geology. Ntsumisa Yanga Matam in environmental science. Ntando Nkonazi in biochemistry. Nobuhle Humzile Mpanza in zoology with distinction. Sinako Ntakati in environmental science. Hilbert Munashi Muchatibaya in computer science. Reese Snell in botany with distinction. Tulisile Nkomo in ichthyology. Seshni Reddy in zoology. Dylan Kyle Ruck in biochemistry. Jamie Lee Ruck in biochemistry with distinction. Chepiso Colin Siboko in environmental science. Zanele Jacqueline Tuisi in environmental science. Moipone Lipalisa Tsawani in computer science. Sopakama Zabo in bioinformatics with distinction.
Ms. Chancellor, I have the honor to request you to confer the degree of Master of Arts to the following candidates. Abna Akum in Journalism and Media Studies. Michaela N. Darius in Linguistics and Applied Language Studies with distinction. Luniko Fuchane in Sociology. Gareya Fredericks in creative writing. Wish to say a few words for this candidate. Is a veteran of the liberation struggle who served in Namibia. He served in Namibia and in a number of countries, and he came here on an AEG. Zimasi Mike Hala in history. Thomas Dave Hussey in linguistics and applied language studies. Ntabiseng Rose Jaron Jafta in creative writing. Courtney Alexandra Jefta in journalism and media studies. Fortunate Jwaha in creative writing with distinction in the School of Languages. Kelia Losa Reynoso in journalism and media studies. Kotlanamang Molesi Wipelo Madito in psychology. Mihlali Makasi Simukonda in counseling psychology. Sibonga Konke Mama in creative writing with distinction. Sinovuyo Mayekiso in psychology. Sandisiwe Sifanelwe Nabo Bazana in counseling psychology. Well done. Tembaletu Sabrina Ngwenya in creative writing. Ayanda Sondaha in development studies. Kuselwa Anda Tembani in journalism and media studies. Samantha Jane Ashburner van Heerden in philosophy with distinction. Sinetemba Juliet Witty in journalism and media studies. Ms. Chancellor, I have the honor to request you to confer the degree of Master of Music to the following candidates. Vuyelwa Olasi Moyo. Ms. Chancellor, I have the honor to request you to confer the degree of Master of Social Science on the following candidates. Lebohang Zandile Kibane in Anthropology. Sibaba Lwempofu in Development Studies. Renisa Naidu in Anthropology. Paige Sarah Norman in Anthropology. Well done, Paige. Ms. Chancellor, I have the honor to request you to confer the degree of Master of Arts on the following candidate. Ziko Dana in African Language Studies. Well done.
Mr. Chancellor, I have the honor to request you to confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy on the following candidates. Ebenezer Barr in Chemistry. Barr's research lies within the important field of molecular self-assembly and supramolecular chemistry, which allowed him to design several families of large cyclic host molecules. These could accommodate chemical guests, such as different antibiotic drugs, thereby protecting the cargo and permitting heavy controlled delivery. These non-toxic guest-host complexes demonstrate good activity against bacteria like Staphylococcus aureus as promising antibacterial treatments. In addition, the novel materials were shown to be useful for gas storage solvent separation and other interesting industrial applications. Casey J. Broom in Ichthyology. Freshwater fishes are in global decline due to the impacts of human activities. This is particularly true for the endemic fishes found in South Africa's Cape Fold ecoregion. Unfortunately, a lack of baseline biological and ecological knowledge hampers effective management of these species. Casey adopted an innovative, multifaceted approach to understand the dynamics and response of vulnerable fish communities to the dominant threats and existing management initiatives. The findings added significantly to the current body of knowledge and importantly can be immediately applied to improve management of these threatened systems. Lorna Jemasop Shibon in Bioinformatics. The fight against malaria relies on drug therapy, yet the malaria parasite has developed resistance to almost all clinically approved drugs. Lorna's work focused on understanding the resistance mechanisms due to mutations in a key malarial drug target. Insights into the molecular basis of this resistance were generated and coupled with a novel approach used in screening a library of natural compounds, together with the clinically approved drugs. Potential antimalarial hit compounds were discovered. Chwaro David Ditukwe in marine biology. The Southern Ocean represents an important sink for atmospheric carbon dioxide and is therefore a key component of the global carbon cycle. To understand how global climate change is likely to affect the global carbon cycle, it is essential that we understand the various biological processes that regulate the uptake of carbon in the Southern Ocean. Using metagenomics, the study of genetic material, Chwaro demonstrated that bacteria and viruses play an important role in mediating carbon export to depth. These findings provide important insights into the ocean carbon cycle. Moline Gusha in marine biology. Climate change threats to biodiversity are difficult to study because individual species react differently to change. Natana sampled the entire coast of South Africa and hundreds of species to show that what is critical is what a species does and not its identity. This is important because several species can perform the same function, giving ecosystems greater stability. In a major theoretical contribution, Natana used this approach to show that despite ongoing stress, coastal ecosystems in South Africa remain functionally stable. Lydia Kasula in chemistry. Lydia's work focused on the synthesis of 1,4-dihydroxy anthraquinone derivatives, starting with anacardic acid, an agriculture waste product from the shells of the cashew nut. Her impressive research work is an illustration of transforming agro-wastes into valuable biologically useful compounds. In her research, several novel compounds were synthesized and characterized. Some of these showed promising antibacterial activity, and others showed activity against trypanosoma parasites, the causative agent for African sleeping sickness. Congratulations. Blessing Mabate in biochemistry. Diabetes, obesity, and cancer affect more than a third of the world's population, and there is a constant search for better therapeutic drugs to treat these diseases, particularly those drugs with fewer side effects. Blessing extracted and characterized fucoidins, which are natural sulfated polysaccharides that are obtained from various South African brown seaweed species, and elucidated the relationship between their biochemical structures and their biological activities. In doing so, Blessing has shown that these fucoidins demonstrate powerful anti-diabetic and anti-cancer properties, which represents a large step forward in using these compounds as possible drug candidates for treating diabetes and cancer in the future. Congratulations. Ritual Mklanga in biochemistry. Triple-negative breast cancer is an aggressive disease that disproportionately affects black women and is resistant to current hormone-based therapies due to the absence of a key hormone receptors. Ritual's doctoral research explored ferrosinyl benzoaxine compounds as potential novel inhibitors of triple-negative breast cancer and characterized their effects in drug targets belonging to the GHKL superfamily of oncogenic proteins that share a common nucleotide binding domain. His work suggested that the GHKL inhibition could represent a promising therapeutic strategy for the treatment of triple-negative breast cancer. Chililo Emmanuel Mpepu in entomology. Water hyacinth is an invasive aquatic weed that degrades aquatic ecosystems in South Africa. In South Africa, the biological control agents released against the weed are being diagnosed with a disease that could render it less effective as an agent. Chililo found that the disease was present in all populations of the agent throughout the country, and that the South African beetle performed worse in comparison to disease-free beetles from the United States of America. He showed that a combination of antibiotic application with heat reduced the infection load, improving the performance of this biological control agent. Margaret Nabatanzi in bioinformatics. With the advent of new technologies, biologists produce enormous quantities of data, and new tools are needed to understand it. Margaret's thesis developed bioinformatics tools that focused on the analysis of protein structures. For that, Margaret worked on further developing a three-dimensional calculation web server for proteins. Her work provided the basis to analyze drug target proteins and design new inhibitors for diseases. Pumza Malibongwe Ndeleni in ichthyology. Estuaries are fluctuating environments with relatively few estuarine resident species capable of breeding in these systems. Of the 172 fish species that occur in southern African estuaries, only 43 are estuarine resident, and of these, 25 are gobies. The biology and mechanisms enabling the coexistence of morphologically similar gobies in southern African estuaries is, however, unknown. Phumza demonstrated that the high abundance and diversity of gobies within estuaries is promoted through resource partitioning, with species primarily partitioning resources by occupying different estuarine habitats. Yolande Ikala Openda in chemistry. Chemotherapy indiscriminately destroys both the healthy and cancerous tissue during cancer treatment. On the other hand, increasingly microbial multi-drug resistance has become a global health problem. The candidate developed light activatable dual-action drugs that can be used for both cancer treatment and as antibiotics with no possibility of developing resistance. In addition, Yolande engineered nanocarriers for efficient delivery of cancer drugs to cancerous areas, thus avoiding the detrimental effects of treatments such as radiation and chemotherapy. William John Sampson in biochemistry. Stem cells are the precursors of all cells in the body and have the potential to revolutionize personalized medicine. William's research showed that stem cells can withstand stress without altering their biology. He demonstrated that OCT4, the main protein required for stem-like characteristics, is intricately regulated during cellular stress, providing the first evidence of stress-induced OCT4 regulation at both the mRNA and protein levels. The study increases our fundamental understanding of stem cell biology and will support future therapeutic applications. Nyeleti Vukia in biochemistry. Recent studies have suggested that targeting the DNA damage repair system of triple-negative breast cancer cells could uncover novel therapies for this aggressive disease. Nyeleti characterized the effect of thiazolidinone compounds as DNA damage-inducing agents in triple-negative breast cancer and found that the compounds also reduced the levels of the glycotic protein PKM2, which was a moonlighting role in DNA repair. This suggests a promising dual mode of action of the compounds that could overcome the problem of treatment resistance.
Ms. Chancellor, I have the honor to request you to confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in the Faculty of Humanities on the following candidates: Joshua Bell in Political and International Studies. Some South African wine farms have received fair trade certification, which ostensibly certifies that the wine from these farms has been produced in a fair and ethical manner. Joshua Bell's study explores whether this certification really guarantees that the lives of the farm workers on these farms have been substantially improved. He found that fair trade certification was no guarantee at all of decent living and working conditions for such farm workers. Congratulations. Cordelia Dodo in history. This thesis on colonial displacement explores how Tonga communities coped with the effects of displacement from 1956 going forward from the Zambezi Valley to the uninhabitable Binga district. She also, in the process, argues that the coming of donor agencies in Binga, supposedly to assist these displaced communities, actually had the opposite effect of entrenching dependency syndrome that ultimately weakened Tonga resilience strategies. The thesis was commended as a refreshingly engaging and well-written thesis that fills a critical niche in the history of marginalized communities. Congratulations, Cordelia. Maosha Dikeletso Amanda Khabobegwe in sociology. The thesis explores the dynamics of youth employment in Johannesburg. In contrast to existing research and policy, which tends to prioritize the supply side of the labor market, this study investigates demand-side constraints. Thank you very much. I will retake this in a short while, and thank you, VC. The thesis by Moshadi Kawobegwe explores the dynamics of youth employment in Johannesburg. In contrast to existing research and policy, which tends to prioritize the supply side of the labor market, the study investigates demand-side constraints and opportunities confronting young job seekers. To this end, the thesis examines the way in which employers' recruitment strategies affect the employment prospects of the youth and highlight the impact of government policies on employees' decision to employ these young people. Congratulations. Paul Dylan Hanma in music. This composition portfolio and the thesis is a continuation of Paul's journey towards expressing the essence of South Africa in musical sound, with his work straddling the country's multicultural, linguistic, musical, and artistic features. It's largely centered within contemporary South Africa. The thesis also references distant, almost forgotten heritages, such as the strand lopers. Hanma weaves the style of Mbaqanga and Murabi, Afropop, South African jazz, the inimitable sounds of the big band era, strand vocal techniques associated with singing traditional isiXhosa texts, and the Uhadi's unique musical features with Western classical instrumentation and idiomatic expression. It is a truly remarkable manifestation of South Africanness. Congratulations. Luzuko Garrison Jacobs, our very own Director of Communication and Advancement at the university. This thesis demonstrates the critical role the media play in shaping public understanding of contentious political issues. In this case, land redistribution without compensation is foregrounded. It does this through close examination of how MoneyWeb, City Press, AfriForum, and the African Farmers Association convey the issues to the readers. All reflected the status quo of capitalist approaches to land ownership inherited from colonization and apartheid, which inhibits program of economic equality. This was an incisive analysis of this media. Congratulations. Daniel Scott Christos Malamis, our subject head in the School of Languages and Classics. In classics, written in ancient Greek and dating from the 2nd or 3rd century, the Orphic hymns is a collection of 88 hymns addressed to divinities, ranging from Athena to Nike and Hercules. In his thesis, Daniel Malamis translated the hymns into contemporary English and offered a detailed analysis of the form, structure, imagery, and religious heritage of the hymns, which has deepened our understanding of ancient polytheism and its rituals. Congratulations, Dan. Mandlenkosi Maposa in sociology. This thesis examines the urban food system in Bulawayo, in Zimbabwe, with specific reference to urban governance and household food security. The key findings reveal that the Bulawayo food system, from production to consumption, is embedded within broader national and international food systems. Although the local authority is at the center of urban governance processes, the food system is also significantly configured by the agency of the urban poor. Congratulations. Annelies Marit in psychology. Recognizing the critical importance of the early years of childhood, this study was conducted in an early childhood development center, utilizing ideas from a Netherlands-based program and employing action research. A successful intervention was adapted and implemented for parents and ECD practitioners. This work applies the concept of educational partnerships to the complex context of a multilingual setting, demonstrating how parents and practitioners might share information and communicate to optimize children's development. It illustrates elements that influenced practice to improve home and school environment for the benefit of the children. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Azihangwisi Eugene Mufamadi in journalism and media studies. This study examined the role that political listening played in the interactions between student protesters and the leadership of the University of Cape Town. The study shows that political listening is very difficult to maintain in a highly conflictual situations. Holding on to power and trying to reduce the other party's power makes it difficult to engage in genuine listening. The study adds a real-life test case involving high-stakes politics to the body of listening theory. Doriboa aswangwisi. And Tinashe Munyarari, in history, the thesis investigated the mobilization and use or abuse of youths to perpetrate political violence in Zimbabwe, arguing that youths were not merely political pawns in a big political game, but that they had various social, political, and other personal interests that guided their political participation. One of the examiners said, the candidates should be strongly encouraged to consider postdoctoral work on such a very rich topic. Congratulations. Innocent Nyati, because my namesake. In history, marginalized communities devise ways of mitigating their marginality and to counter hegemonic practices of majoritarian ethnicities and the state that support such majoritarian ethnicities. Dr. Nyati uses the idea of the quotidian to analyze how the Kalanga of Mangwe district in Zimbabwe have used marginal ethnicity to claim access to scarce resources in their district, to position themselves as the rightful owners of alluvial gold claims, to assert control over the thriving and growing Mopane worm economy, and to create networks of labor migrants in the region. An examiner described the thesis as a solid piece of research that offers refreshing views on how those on the margins of state power seeks to challenge it. Taboka, Innocent, congratulations. Michaela Oosthuizen. This fascinating study looks at the Instagram's profiles of two virtual influencers, Lil Makwela and Kim Zulu, in order to understand how authenticity is negotiated in contemporary digital media cultures. Using a critical discourse analysis, it maps how these human seeming but entirely artificial characters endorse and naturalize youthful, glamorous, and sexy consumer identities for their millions of followers, and how they and the Instagram app directs our attention to buying the customer products that they recommend. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Cornelia Margareta van Vuren in psychology. Gathering the views of educators, district officials, and parents in 3 diverse mainstream Eastern Cape rural schools. This study probed the impact and effects of the inclusive system on the development and social well-being of learners with special needs, considering their human rights and constitutional imperatives. The study found that whilst policies promote inclusion, this is not being successfully realized due to numerous systemic constraints. This study makes a unique contribution by theorizing broader multi-level networked system with greater interaction between government departments to better support children with barriers to learning. Congratulations. Stephanie Emilia Victor in history. This thesis explores, for the first time, the considerable powers of royal Xhosa-speaking women in Eastern Cape history. It documents little-known stories of women from the 1600s through to the 1800s. The analysis shows how royal women acted with skill and agency in a world defined by patriarchies. They operated not only as royal wives and mothers of heirs, but also as founders of clans, chiefs in their own right, policymakers, spiritual leaders, and major actors in times of war. Congratulations. Faith Chipo Zengeni in sociology. A study of postal services in Zimbabwe with a specific focus on the impact of technological changes on organizational design, the nature of work and managerial practices. Using a qualitative research design, the thesis identifies and explores distinct phases in the evolution of technological and organizational changes at ZimPost. In particular, the findings highlight the ways in which these changes are conditioned by prevailing macroeconomic, political, and social conditions in the country. Accordingly, organizational changes are presented as multifaceted, nonlinear, and processual. Congratulations.
I also confer degrees to those candidates named in the program who are in absentia. Please rise for the National Anthem. By virtue of the authority vested in me, I dissolve this congregation of Rhodes University.